So then we are back with the modern understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation is from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yirmiyahu the prophet, we find a layer of understanding of the spring feast, autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries, precisely on then Yirmiyahu the 61st chapter, and then also regarding Yirmiyahu chapter 1:8, related with the returning of the city of the Messiah, precisely then on the land of Cush. So then the prophet Yirmiyahu, we might make a comparison with him. Obviously he was a prophet firstly, but then for Gentile practical understanding of the holy instructions, let's compare then Yirmiyahu as a surveyor of the time, where then instruments were used other than modern electronic equipment. So then we can map the future and understand from simple terms how precise then the instructions are. These days, where so many of the computer systems and then telephones and then many kinds of electronic gadgets are taking over the world, and unfortunately even taking over the people, because people are mixing reality with the virtual areas of this crazy electronic age we're living in. But then we must understand and strip ourselves away from these complicated electronic systems, even computers. So then we begin our quest understanding from Yirmiyahu's viewpoint, and then we can project those simple areas of Yirmiyahu where then we can use later then computers, so then we can re-evaluate our own understanding of the precision of the holy instructions. These may sound a bit strange, but if you then understand the instructions from Yirmiyahu's viewpoint, then we understand the projected instructions. The projected instructions requires the usage of computers, but not the original prophecies themselves of the time of Yirmiyahu when those prophecies were then spoken. So then, let's try then start our quest with then obviously tabernacling. Firstly, because we must acknowledge the 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. There are some instructions, some crazy manuscripts regarding 9 gifts of the Spirit. Not sure where these crazy people got this number from, but obviously they don't know how to count. When they read Galah or Revelation, it is the answer already given. 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. Those are given only to the Hebrews when they are obedient and doing the work precisely as the Messiah told them to do, and then being functioning in the holy cities and then helping the Gentiles outside. But then, not only this, as we find ourselves then understanding the relationship of the politics of the time and also trade, those obviously must be separated. We find many areas of the 23rd chapter of Yirmiyahu where then the Creator himself said he would bring the glory of these politics and trade to contempt. What he was saying is this: there is no way of mixing religion and trade, because whatsoever we have a conception or an understanding of Creator must be tabernacling. There is no other way of representing it. So then, since we understand that there are no churches but congregations, because churches have the meaning of religion, and religion never plays any part in any kind of the holy instructions. We only find the Messiah explaining the true intent of the holy instructions if you want to help other people, being concerned then with widows and orphans, because by doing this you are showing concern, and then you can lead the people towards then what the Messiah has said. These were then obviously Some of the remarks, Shaliach Shaul and many others later then gave those directives, because have this in mind. A lot of these congregations, they were outside of the holy cities, since we understand the first holy city came during the time of Yohanan. He was then the first holy city of the time when then, roughly 100 years after his ascension, then the first holy city was then set up and served as HQ. So then documents of the transitional time were then gathered and then studied and absolutely perfectly organized. So then the 7 cities of Asia Minor then were organized as they were in sin. So the Messiah, when he spoke with Yohanan, he spoke from a position where he was then satisfied with the first holy city serving as the example for the others. From then on, then we find Asia being very prosperous because of the teachings of Shaliach Shaul, and obviously because of the 7 cities. From then on, more cities then came around until 1009. 1009 had ended the holy cities, thus then starting the time of the seat. For 1,000 years then the seat was around, and then no holy cities were then present. But then in 2010 the time of the city has ended, but then because of the time of the transition, then we must be acquainted with this time then having a specific time frame, where then chapter 1:8 of Galah then becomes available prior of the starting of the autumn feast. As we read from Galah, chapter 1:8 does not belong with Galah, belongs with the time of the restoration period. However, there is a Chinese system yet must be implemented, and this implementation of this system brings then the computer. Then we bring the computer into our study, because these trade of the end must include the computerized systems, because it must scrutinize and place in check every politician of these nations, because most of them are scoundrels anyway, and they always destroy the economy, and the Creator knew it. At the end of the 1,000 years of the city, he already spoke with the prophet. He said people would go to and fro for 1,000 years, and then even the people selected would be mixed up with them for a time, and then afterwards time to return to the holy services as it was then ordered. Then we find ourselves studying these documents and then being acquainted with the importance of the returning of the city of the Messiah on the land of Cush. But then the people always they try to mock their way through. Some people they like to listen but they don't like to obey. Is the obligation of the Gentiles set up the city? No, it's the obligation of the Hebrews. Are they lazy? Absolutely. They are lazy, they are fearful, they have no courage, and they are chickens. Because the Messiah told them to do precisely as the Moshe's laws gave us then the very precise understanding of tabernacling. These they should set up. And the Holy Ark of the Covenant was already found in 82, and they must make a copy of this existing Ark of the Covenant and then set up tabernacle in the land of Cush. It is a very simple task, but the Hebrews are lazy. The Hebrews are absolutely fearful. They don't have the courage. And the Messiah said, those who are then fearful and they are ashamed of the Messiah, obviously the Messiah won't save them. So then, while then the Gentiles are on standby because of the incompetence of the Hebrews, then it is requiring us then to understand the holy instructions, so then we understand at least the political understanding of this time of the restoration period. Then was a study, then the situation regarding the DRC or Congo, and then its many intricacies, as the prophet mentioned very precisely, woe to the land beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. But then we find these as then Yirmiyahu the prophet, and we find a section also of Daniel the prophet, where then there is the kingdom of the north kingdom of the south, and then later, a couple of chapters later, then the kingdom of the east. And then the spiritual combat that goes on with the Baal and the dragon. Dragon simply is a precision term. And later on, nations will turn to the computer to do trade, to do purchases, and must be scrutinized by the computer systems. So then, as we study then the precision of the instructions, we must understand what the prophets were after. Their task, their objectives was then to point the people back to the instructions. This was the primary task. The second was then explaining what was going on during their time of their politics, exposing then the rot that was involved with trade and tabernacling, then removing the people out of paganism, removing religion and returning to the Mosaic law, doing precisely what Moshe told them to do and observe and train and do the holy mikras and the holy rehearsals, and then wait for the Mashiach, waiting for then the spring feast. These were then the tasks given by the prophets. But then the prophets also included the Gentiles because they were included in the holy instructions. The main objective of the people of the Hebrews were then for them to go around forming holy cities and then helping the Gentiles then being saved. But thus far they are not doing a very nice job. They like the niceties of this earth, but they are not doing what they should be doing. So then, because of these, then we find ourselves then taking on upon ourselves, Gentiles, the studying of these holy documents, and then confronting any person, any Hebrew, or any person lazy, not doing their jobs. Must be done. They must be confronted. So then, we find Yirmiyahu the prophet. He wrote many of these holy instructions, and then some of them are very specific. As you would find, for example, a surveyor, when they were delineating the land, when they were making markers of the land, taking measurements, so then was similarly what the prophets did. But the precision of this system was such that there is a spiritual machine. When Ezekiel saw those round, strange objects going around in circles, those, because of Yirmiyahu, around the 40th chapter, you find then the Creator sits on the circle of the earth. You find in an example of the planetary vision of it. At the same time, then because of these understandings of the layers of these instructions, you find then the Torah in the center of it, and then many of those round spiritual circles, those are the synchronisms of times and the seasons. Each of those round objects, they are related with a specific portion of the scripture. It takes a lot of time and a lot of study then to decipher, firstly, Yirmiyahu the prophet from 1st until the 6th chapter. Each of those areas must be studied. It must be dismembered. Then reading Daniel, then reading Ezekiel, then most importantly, the king of Tyre and Tarshish. Because as then the time of Ibrahim, the first son and the second sons, they were then converging very slightly. Did not have tabernacling at the time. Let's make this extremely clear. The people of Israel went out of the land in order for the land to rest. Tabernacling must be in Jerusalem, but couldn't be at the time because the land was secured for resting. However, when they were in exile, there were then hints, and a person might say shadows of the understanding of tabernacling, and then also trade, how they should be. And there was a training site regarding the first teachings of Ibrahim, known as the Quran. The Quran are the teachings of the first son Ishmael. This is the objective of the Quran. And there are some people, they were enlightened from these teachings of Ishmael, and they were obviously recognized. But the main bulk of the understanding objective is then pure trade, reliability, and the beauty of trade taught then from Ishmael and then on, because Ishmael was a king. So then we find these as a training camp, a person might say, quote, quote. Then you find Tarshish, you find Tyre, and then you find the teachings of the first son of Ibrahim nearly in its perfection. Perfection word can't be used. Nearly completed, a person might say. Whatsoever they had to learn as far as the beauty of trade they did. The problem was those kings began to be exalted above what they should have. Then became idolatry, became self-glorification. And then the Creator Himself mentioned then of these prophets, make sure you teach them then tabernacling a bit. Because they must understand there is a higher level of heaven absolutely watching every move of every time. So then these kings, they could be more acquainted with tabernacling. So then we find these kingdoms, Tarshish and Tyre, extremely important during the time of Ezekiel and Daniel, because they were deciphering the future existence of the Gentiles' politics and kingships. So they went through a training period in their lives. They had to experience for themselves what these were in order for them to learn what the future would bring, so then they could project. Let's try to understand. Spring feast was not yet ready. The autumn feast much further yet. These, they had to have an idea how then these nations would act when they would project the spiritual understandings of the time of Daniel and Ezekiel, and then a couple hundred years earlier than Yirmiyahu, and these were projected in the future, as if you were then watching a video pertinent to the objective of the video, not the events themselves. Let's try to do this very clearly, because the spiritual understanding of the video is then projected in the future. So then we find ourselves studying these documents, and we find then the Creator absolutely 100% sure separating politics and trade. Politics, they have self-gloried themselves with the riches of the earth. The Creator wants to remove politics from trade and restore what Ibrahim then taught his first son. These must be then taught later by the Ishmaelites, the sons of Ishmael, the Arab people. The Arab people are then people of trade. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of years of experience, and they won't ever bow down to any other culture other than what they have learned, because they have learned from the Creator Himself. And these then, yet this day, they must be cleaned. For instance, the Arab nations must divide themselves and be absolutely separated from the West. They must clean up themselves from Western culture, and they have also to learn their side on the holy instructions. They have to read those pertinent documents, because there are scores and scores of documents on the holy instructions tailor-made for the Arab nations, and they must clean up themselves. United States has no other choice. They must retrieve and rebuild their own country. America is extremely young, has roughly more than a couple hundred years. America is a baby out of control. When we compare nations such as the Arab nations, they have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years of experience. And these they should then restore as it was during the time of the son of Ibrahim, then Ishmael. Must be restored as per instructions, because we find in the 62nd chapter of Yirmiyahu, you find then obviously the restoring of these. So we're going to explore more of the sons of Ishmael later. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.